Welcome to Mystery Manor Tales. I'm your host, Evelyn Whisper. If you're new here, we specialize in cozy, immersive mystery stories perfect for relaxing with a cup of tea or drifting off to sleep. Today, we're diving into a brand new original tale inspired by the Queen of Crime herself, Agatha Christie. It's called The Vanishing Governess of Raven Court, a Miss Marple murder story. This is a long one, over 90 minutes of narration, so settle in, dim the lights, and let the intrigue unfold. I'll be reading it in chapters for easy pacing. And remember, if you enjoy this, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Perhaps a rainy London flat or a sunny California porch. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Shadows of Raven Court. In the autumn of 1925, with mist curling like a living thing over the Berkshire Hills, Raven Court stood as a monument to a fading era. The Georgian manor, its stone facade cloaked in ivy and its chimneys piercing the low clouds, had been the seat of the Ashford family for 3 centuries. Its tall windows glowed faintly in the dusk, reflecting the last embers of a world still clinging to Victorian grandeur while the jazz age hummed in the distance. The estate, though only an hour's train from London's clamour, felt like a realm apart, its silence broken only by the rustle of ancient oaks and the occasional cry of a pheasant in the woods. Sir Reginald Ashford, the patriarch, was a man forged in the fires of industry. At 55, his broad shoulders and commanding presence still hinted at the vigor of his youth, though his waistline had softened from years of rich dinners and boardroom triumphs. His steel mills and railway investments had built a fortune, but his stern demeanor, gray eyes sharp as flint, mustache meticulously trimmed, suggested a man who brooked no dissent. He ruled Raven Court with the same iron hand he applied to his factories, though whispers among the staff hinted at cracks in his empire. Debts mounting, investments souring. Sir Reginald's study, lined with leather-bound ledgers and portraits of dour ancestors, was his sanctuary, where he pored over accounts late into the night, a glass of brandy ever at hand. His wife, Lady Victoria Ashford, was a study in contrasts. 10 years younger, she carried the elegance of a pre-Raphaelite painting. Auburn hair swept into intricate coils, emerald eyes that seemed to see through people, and a wardrobe fresh from Paris ateliers. Yet her poise masked a restlessness. The servants, ever watchful, noted her long silences at dinner, her habit of staring out windows toward London, as if yearning for escape. Gossip below stairs suggested a secret life in the city. Teas with mysterious gentlemen, letters burned in the fireplace before dawn. Lady Victoria's smile was a polished thing, but it rarely reached her eyes. Their son, Reginald Jr., known to all as Reggie, was a golden youth of 25, fresh from Oxford with a degree in classics and a penchant for trouble. Tall and lean, with his father's strong jaw but his mother's charm, Reggie was a darling of London's jazz clubs and gambling dens. His tailored suits and quick grin belied a reckless streak. He'd racked up debts that Sir Reginald grudgingly settled, muttering about that wastrel boy. Reggie's visits to Raven Court were fleeting, marked by spirited arguments with his father and flirtations with anyone who caught his eye. "The world's changing, father," he'd say, waving a cigarette. "You can't keep me chained to ledgers." Clarissa Ashford, the daughter, was 22, a delicate beauty with porcelain skin and hair like spun gold. Her engagement to Captain Harold Beaumont, a decorated war hero, was the talk of the county. Harold, 30, bore a slight limp from a shrapnel wound in the Somme, but his steady gaze and quiet strength made him a favorite at Raven Court. His modest inheritance, land in Kent, a small trust, paled against the Ashford wealth, yet Clarissa adored him. Their wedding, set for spring, promised to be the season's event, though Clarissa's anxious glances suggested worries beyond bridal nerves. She spent hours in the conservatory, sketching flowers or reading novels, as if avoiding the manor's heavier air. The household's rhythm was maintained by Mr. Jenkins, the butler, a man of 60 whose gaunt frame and impassive face seemed carved from the manor's own oak. 30 years of service had made him a fixture, his black suit as much a part of Raven Court as its stone walls. Jenkins moved with silent precision, overseeing meals and staff with a glance that missed nothing. Yet his reserve hinted at depths unspoken, secrets gathered over decades, loyalties tested by time. Sarah Wilkins, the young maid, was his opposite. A sprightly girl of 19, her chestnut curls escaping her cap, her quick hands matched by quicker ears. Sarah's chatter filled the servants' hall, but she knew when to listen, catching fragments of conversations not meant for her. At the heart of our tale was Miss Eleanor Vance, the governess. Hired 2 years prior to tutor Clarissa in French, literature, and the finer points of etiquette, though Clarissa's education was largely complete. Miss Vance was an enigma. Tall and willowy, with raven black hair pinned in a severe bun and eyes dark as polished obsidian, she carried herself with quiet authority. Her origins were murky. Some said she hailed from a fallen Devonshire family. Others whispered of a London scandal she'd fled. Her wardrobe, though modest, bore the tailored elegance of better days. Gray wool dresses with a hint of silk at the collar. Miss Vance was often seen at dusk, strolling the estate's rose garden with a volume of Keats or Shelley, her expression distant as if lost in memories. The staff respected her but kept their distance. She spoke little, yet her gaze seemed to unravel secrets. It was into this intricate tapestry that Miss Jane Marple arrived, as unassuming as a sparrow yet sharp as a hawk. A distant cousin of Lady Victoria's through some labyrinthine family connection, Miss Marple had been invited for a brief stay, ostensibly to escape the damp chill of her cottage in St. Mary Mead. But those who knew her, village gossips, vicars, and constables, understood that her visits often coincided with trouble brewing. She stepped off the local train on a crisp October afternoon, her small valise in one hand, a knitting bag in the other. Her tweed coat was sensible, her hat adorned with a single feather, and her spectacles glinted with quiet curiosity. The chauffeur, a taciturn man named Bates, drove her up the winding gravel drive. Raven Court loomed ahead, its silhouette softened by mist. "A fine old place," Miss Marple remarked, her voice soft but clear. "Though I dare say these grand houses carry as many shadows as they do rooms." Bates grunted, non-committal, but she caught the flicker of his eyes in the rearview mirror. Lady Victoria greeted her at the door, all warmth and graciousness. "Dear Cousin Jane, how good of you to come. The country air will do you wonders." They settled in the drawing room, where a fire crackled and tea was served in bone china. The room was a study in opulence, velvet drapes, a Persian rug, a grand piano in one corner. Yet Miss Marple noted the details: a frayed edge on a cushion, a crack in the mantle's marble. Signs of strain in a house that wore its wealth like a mask. "Such a peaceful spot," Miss Marple said, sipping her Earl Grey. "Though I imagine it's never truly quiet in a family so lively." Lady Victoria's smile tightened. "Oh, we manage. Reginald keeps busy with his business and the children have their pursuits." Dinner that evening was a formal affair, the dining room aglow with candlelight. Sir Reginald presided at the table's head, carving roast pheasant with precision. Reggie regaled the group with tales of London's nightlife, earning a scowl from his father. Clarissa spoke softly of her wedding plans, while Harold described a journey on the Orient Express years ago, his voice tinged with nostalgia. Miss Vance was absent, detained by some task in the library, though her empty chair seemed to draw glances. Miss Marple, seated beside Jenkins, observed the undercurrents. Sir Reginald's sharp rebuke when Reggie mentioned a gambling debt. Lady Victoria's hand trembling as she poured coffee, her eyes darting to the door. Clarissa's forced laughter at Harold's anecdote, and later, as the party dispersed, a heated exchange drifted from the study, Sir Reginald's voice low and furious, mentioning that infernal woman and family disgrace. Retiring to her guest room overlooking the rose garden, Miss Marple unpacked her knitting and settled by the fire. The manor creaked around her, its timbers whispering secrets. "It's rather like St. Mary Mead," she murmured, her needles clicking softly. Everyone has something to hide, and it's the smallest threads that unravel the tapestry. As midnight approached, a faint sound, a muffled sob perhaps, echoed from the west wing where Miss Vance's quarters lay. Miss Marple paused, her senses sharp. The stage was set, the players in place, and Raven Court's shadows were about to deepen into mystery. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Night. The night draped Raven Court in a velvet hush, broken only by the wind's soft keening through the ancient oaks that guarded the estate. The manor, its ivy-clad walls silvered by moonlight, seemed to hold its breath, as if aware of the secrets stirring within. In her guest room overlooking the rose garden, Miss Jane Marple sat by a crackling fire, her knitting needles clicking rhythmically. The room was cozy, chintz curtains, a four-poster bed, a porcelain wash-basin, but sleep eluded her. Old houses, she knew, spoke in creaks and sighs, and Raven Court was no exception. Each sound was a thread in the tapestry of human drama she was already beginning to unravel. At precisely midnight, a faint cry pierced the silence, a muffled sob quickly stifled from the direction of the west wing. Miss Marple's needles paused. The west wing housed Miss Eleanor Vance's quarters, a modest suite of bedroom, sitting room, and study where the governess retired each evening. Sarah the maid had mentioned Miss Vance's habit of bolting her doors, a ritual born of a need for privacy, or perhaps fear. Miss Marple set her knitting aside, her senses sharp. "Curious," she murmured, slipping on her shawl. She considered investigating, but thought better of it. The hour was late, and appearances mattered in a house like this. Instead, she noted the time on the mantel clock and resolved to inquire come morning. Dawn broke with a chill mist, the Berkshire Hills shrouded in gray. The household gathered in the dining room for breakfast. A spread of kedgeree, poached eggs, toast, and marmalade laid out on a linen-draped table. The chandelier gleamed dully above, its crystals catching the weak October light. Sir Reginald Ashford sat at the head, his morning paper folded crisply, his expression as unyielding as the oak table. Lady Victoria, in a silk dressing gown, poured tea with practiced grace, though her eyes flicked to the empty chair at the table's far end. Reggie, bleary-eyed from a late night, buttered his toast with unnecessary vigor, while Clarissa toyed with her napkin, her engagement ring glinting. Captain Harold Beaumont, ever the gentleman, complimented the cook, though his gaze lingered on the door. Jenkins, the butler, moved silently, refilling coffee with mechanical precision. Sarah bustled in with a fresh pot, her cheeks flushed. "Where is Miss Vance?" Lady Victoria asked, her voice light but edged with irritation. "She's usually so punctual." Sir Reginald lowered his paper. "Overslept, no doubt. Governesses aren't immune to human failings." Reggie smirked. "Perhaps she's off composing poetry in the garden. She's rather fond of that." Clarissa frowned. "Don't be unkind, Reggie. Eleanor works hard." Harold cleared his throat. "I'll check on her after breakfast if she doesn't appear." Miss Marple, sipping her tea, observed the exchange. The family's tension was palpable, like a violin string wound too tight. She noted Sir Reginald's dismissive tone, Lady Victoria's fleeting glance at her husband, and Reggie's forced nonchalance. Something was amiss, and Miss Vance's absence was the first clear note of discord. Jenkins approached Sir Reginald. Shall I send Sarah to Miss Vance's room, sir? Do it, Sir Reginald grunted, returning to his paper, and tell her to be quick about it. Sarah hurried upstairs, her footsteps echoing on the grand staircase. The group continued their meal in uneasy silence, the clink of cutlery unnaturally loud. Miss Marple buttered a scone, her eyes darting to each face. "Such a lovely house," she remarked, "though I fancy it keeps its secrets close, like the vicarage in St. Mary Mead." Lady Victoria forced a smile. "Oh, Cousin Jane, you do love your village tales." Before Miss Marple could reply, Sarah burst back into the room, her face pale as milk. "Sir, madam, she's not there. Her door's locked from the inside and there's no answer. I knocked and called, but it's silent as the grave." Sir Reginald's fork clattered to his plate. "Locked? Nonsense. She's probably in the library." "I checked, sir," Sarah stammered. "The library's empty." Lady Victoria's hand flew to her pearls. "This is most irregular. Eleanor wouldn't just wander off." Reggie pushed back his chair. "Perhaps she's ill. We should break the door down." Harold stood, his military bearing evident. "I'll assist. Jenkins, fetch a crowbar." The group ascended the staircase, Miss Marple following at her measured pace, her knitting bag tucked under her arm. The west wing corridor was dim, its oak paneling absorbing the light from sconces. Miss Vance's door, heavy and carved with floral motifs, stood resolute. Jenkins rapped sharply, his voice formal. "Miss Vance, are you within?" Silence. Harold and Reggie exchanged a glance, then applied their shoulders to the door. With a groan of splintering wood, the lock gave way and the door swung inward. The room beyond was a study in order and emptiness. The bed was neatly made, its counterpane undisturbed, as if no one had slept there. A fire smoldered in the grate, its embers casting a faint glow. On the desk, a half-finished letter lay beside an inkwell, the pen resting at an angle as though abandoned mid-thought. The windows were latched tight, their curtains drawn against the morning. The sitting room and study, visible through open doors, were equally pristine. No sign of struggle, no overturned chair, no trace of Miss Eleanor Vance. "Impossible," Sir Reginald muttered, his face gray. "She can't have vanished from a locked room." Lady Victoria clutched Clarissa's arm. "Where could she have gone? She wouldn't leave without a word." Clarissa's eyes filled with tears. "She was like a sister to me. Something's terribly wrong." Miss Marple stepped forward, her sensible shoes silent on the rug. She knelt by the desk, her fingers brushing the blotter. "Look here, a smudge of ink, quite fresh, as if she was interrupted, and this rug." She nudged it with her toe, slightly askew as though dragged a few inches. Harold peered at the windows. "Latched from the inside, no one climbed out." Jenkins, his face impassive, added, "Miss Vance always bolted her doors at night. I checked the locks myself at 11. Reggie ran a hand through his hair. "What then? She's a ghost now, slipping through walls?" Miss Marple's eyes twinkled behind her spectacles. "Not a ghost, dear boy, but someone who was here left traces, however faint." The police were summoned from the nearby village of Lower Ashby. Inspector Hargrove, a burly man with a mustache like a hedgerow and a no-nonsense air, arrived with 2 constables, their boots muddy from the trek. He surveyed the room, hands on hips. "A vanishing, eh? Sounds like she's run off. Women do that, eloping or some such nonsense." Miss Marple shook her head gently. "Inspector, I fear it's more sinister. A locked room, an interrupted letter, a misplaced rug. These are not the signs of a flighty heart." Hargrove raised an eyebrow but began his inspection. The letter, addressed to a Mr. L. in London, contained only a few lines. "I can no longer remain silent. The truth must be told, though it risks everything." The ink was fresh, the handwriting unmistakably Miss Vance's. The windows, as Harold noted, were secure, their latches rusted from disuse. The chimney was too narrow for escape, the walls solid oak and stone. No secret passages emerged under Hargrove's tapping fists. Sarah, hovering by the door, whispered to Miss Marple, "She had enemies, miss. I heard her arguing with Sir Reginald last night, something about improper conduct and money owed. And Master Reggie, he was sweet on her, but she turned him away." Miss Marple nodded. "And Lady Victoria? Any tensions there?" Sarah hesitated. There were letters, secret ones from London. Miss Vance knew about them. I heard her and her ladyship in the library, voices sharp. The inspector called for a search of the grounds, but Miss Marple lingered, examining the room. A faint scuff on the windowsill caught her eye. Not a rope mark, but perhaps a shoe. And a single rose petal crushed on the floor, its scent still lingering. "From the garden path," she murmured. "She may have walked there before. Whatever happened?" As the household dispersed, whispers spread like wildfire. Reggie's flirtations with Miss Vance were no secret, nor was Clarissa's quiet jealousy. She'd called the governess too close to her fiancé. Lady Victoria's London letters hinted at an affair, and Miss Vance's knowledge made her a threat. Harold's past held shadows. Miss Vance had been engaged to his late brother, whose death in a hunting accident raised questions. Even Jenkins, the stoic butler, had a motive. Family loyalty, perhaps, if Miss Vance's actions shamed the household. The search parties fanned out across the lawns and woods, but Miss Marple remained in the manor, her mind turning. "It's like the case of the missing choir boy in St. Mary Mead," she mused. All the clues were there, but misdirection hid the truth. The vanishing of Miss Vance was no mere flight. It was the opening act of a darker drama, and Raven Court's secrets were only beginning to unravel. Chapter 3. The Body in the Boathouse. The morning mist clung to Raven Court's sprawling grounds, wrapping the estate's lawns and woods in a gauzy veil. The air was sharp with the scent of wet earth and fading roses and the distant bleat of sheep carried from the Berkshire hills. Inside the manor, the shock of Miss Eleanor Vance's disappearance from her locked room lingered like a chill no fire could dispel. The household moved in a daze, their routines disrupted by the unanswered question: where was the governess? Miss Jane Marple, however, was not one to linger in confusion. While the others fretted, she wandered the corridors, her sensible shoes silent on the polished floors. Her eyes catching details others missed: a crooked picture frame, a smudge of wax on a banister. Inspector Hargrove, the village policeman, had taken charge with the brusque efficiency of a man accustomed to petty thefts, not vanishing governesses. His mustache bristled as he barked orders to his 2 constables who were already combing the grounds. Search parties formed. Sir Reginald Ashford led a group toward the woods, his booming voice cutting through the fog. Reggie and Captain Harold Beaumont took the eastern fields. Lady Victoria, pale but composed, insisted on checking the stables with Jenkins. Clarissa, too distraught to join, remained in the drawing room, twisting her engagement ring. Sarah, the maid, hovered nearby, her eyes red from crying. Miss Marple declined the search, citing her age and a preference for quiet observation. Instead, she lingered in the kitchen where Sarah was peeling potatoes with trembling hands, the rhythmic scrape of her knife betraying her nerves. "Such a dreadful business," Miss Marple said, settling into a chair with her knitting. Miss Vance seemed so devoted to her duties. Did she ever speak of leaving? Sarah shook her head, her curls bouncing. "Never, miss. She loved teaching Miss Clarissa, even if it was just French and such, but she wasn't happy here. Not truly. I heard her arguing with Sir Reginald last night in his study. Something about money owed to her family and him saying she'd regret crossing him." Miss Marple's needles clicked softly. Money can stir such trouble. And what of Lady Victoria? Any tensions there? Sarah glanced at the door, lowering her voice. Miss Vance knew things about letters her ladyship got from London. Secret ones, burned in the fireplace. I saw her ladyship shouting at Miss Vance in the library a week ago, calling her a meddler. And young Mr. Reggie? Miss Marple prompted. Sarah blushed. He fancied her, miss, always lingering near her, offering to carry her books. But she'd have none of it. Said he was a boy playing at love. Miss Marple nodded, her mind filing away each thread. And Captain Beaumont? I understand Miss Vance knew his late brother. Aye, Sarah said. They were engaged once before he died in that accident. The captain never spoke of it, but I saw him glare at her sometimes like he blamed her. Before Miss Marple could press further, a shout echoed from the direction of the ornamental lake, its waters glinting dully through the mist. Harold's voice, sharp with urgency, carried over the grounds. Here, in the boathouse. The household converged, their boots squelching in the mud. Miss Marple followed at her own pace, her shawl drawn tight against the damp. The boathouse, a weathered structure of wood and peeling paint, stood at the lake's edge, its door secured with a heavy padlock. Harold stood outside, his face grim as Reggie fumbled with the key which Jenkins produced from a ring. The door creaked open, revealing a shadowed interior smelling of damp wood and algae. There, on the rough floorboards, lay Miss Eleanor Vance, or what remained of her. Her body was crumpled, her neck twisted at an unnatural angle, a faint bruise blooming on her temple. Her raven-black hair fanned out, matted with blood, and her dark eyes stared blankly at the ceiling. A heavy oar rested nearby, its blade smeared with a dark stain that could only be blood. The boathouse door had been locked from the outside, the key still in the padlock. Inspector Hargrove knelt beside the body, his face grim. Strangled, I'd say, then struck to be sure. Time of death likely around midnight, judging by the rigor. But how the devil did she get here from a locked room upstairs? And who locked her in? Sir Reginald's face was ashen, his voice hoarse. This is an outrage. A murder on my estate. Lady Victoria swayed, clutching Harold's arm, her voice a whisper. Eleanor, dead? It's unthinkable. Clarissa let out a sob, burying her face in her hands. She was so kind to me. Who could do this? Reggie stared at the body, his usual charm replaced by a pallor. I saw her last night in the garden. She seemed fine, just reading her poetry. Miss Marple stepped into the boathouse, her eyes scanning the scene. Notice the mud on her shoes, she said softly. Fresh, from the path to the lake. She walked here, willingly or otherwise, and this. She bent to pick up a monogrammed handkerchief, its edges embroidered with R.A. Sir Reginald's, perhaps? Hargrove took the handkerchief, slipping it into an evidence bag. We'll see about that. Could be planted. Everyone back to the house. I'll need statements. As the constables cordoned off the boathouse and the body was covered with a tarp. Rain began to fall, soft at first, then heavier, turning the path to mud. Miss Marple lingered, her gaze lingering on the oar. No blood splatter, she murmured. Odd for a weapon used in such violence. She noted a faint trail of disturbed pebbles leading from the path to the door, as if something or someone had been dragged. Back at the manor, Inspector Hargrove sat up in the library, his notebook open, his pencil poised. The household gathered, their faces a mix of shock and suspicion. Sir Reginald blustered. I was in my study all evening reviewing accounts. That handkerchief must have been stolen. I lost it weeks ago. Lady Victoria, her composure fraying, said, I retired early with a headache. Eleanor and I were friends. Why would I harm her? Reggie, lighting a cigarette, admitted, I was in the conservatory around midnight, smoking, alone. I didn't see her after the garden. Clarissa's voice trembled. I was reading in my room. Eleanor was helping plan my wedding. She had no enemies. Harold, his jaw tight, said, I was walking the grounds, clearing my head. My brother's death was an accident, nothing to do with her. Jenkins, ever formal, stated, I locked up at 11, sir. Saw nothing amiss. Sarah, wringing her apron, added, I heard footsteps in the west wing around midnight, but I couldn't say whose. Miss Marple sat quietly, her knitting a soft counterpoint to the tense voices. She noted inconsistencies. Sir Reginald's handkerchief, Reggie's vague alibi, Lady Victoria's nervous glance at Harold. The inspector's theory of strangulation followed by a blow suggested premeditation, but the locked boathouse puzzled him. It's a locked room mystery twice over, he muttered. First her room, now this. Miss Marple's eyes twinkled. It reminds me of a case in St. Mary Mead, where a farmer's wife vanished to hide an affair. But this is no romance. The mud on her shoes, the handkerchief, the locked door, these are threads in a deliberate pattern. As the rain drummed on the windows, new clues emerged. A gardener reported finding a torn scrap of fabric, gray wool like Miss Vance's dress, caught on a rosebush near the lake path. In the manor's medicine cabinet, an empty vial labeled arsenic raised eyebrows, though Hargrove noted no poison in the body yet. Footprints in the mud outside the boathouse, large, male-sized, led to the lake but not back, as if erased by the rain or design. Suspicions crystallized. Sir Reginald's argument with Miss Vance suggested a spurned advance or financial dispute. Lady Victoria's secret letters pointed to blackmail. Reggie's flirtations, rebuffed, could have turned to rage. Clarissa, despite her tears, might fear Miss Vance's influence over her inheritance. Harold's past with Miss Vance's fiancé hinted at revenge. Even Jenkins, loyal to a fault, might protect the family's honor at any cost. Miss Marple wandered the grounds as the search continued, her umbrella shielding her from the drizzle. Near the boathouse, she found a cigarette butt. Reggie's brand, Turkish blend. But anyone could have taken one, she mused, pocketing it. The rain had washed away much, but not the sense of a carefully staged crime. As evening fell, a telegram arrived for Sir Reginald, its message cryptic. Urgent. E.V. knows all. Meet me. Signed Mr. L. The household tensed, eyes darting. Was Miss Vance entangled in a larger scheme? Miss Marple, back in her room, knitted thoughtfully. It's like the poison pen letters in my village, she said to herself. Everyone has a secret, but only one leads to murder. Chapter 4. Threads of Deception. The rain had settled into a steady drizzle over Raven Court, cloaking the estate in a gray veil that matched the mood within its walls. The discovery of Miss Eleanor Vance's body in the boathouse, strangled, bruised, and locked inside, had transformed the manor's genteel facade into a stage for suspicion. Inspector Hargrove, his mustache damp from the weather, had commandeered the library as his base, its shelves of leather-bound tomes and flickering lamps a fitting backdrop for an unfolding mystery. His notebook lay open, pages filling with scrawled notes as he prepared to interrogate the household. Miss Jane Marple, unobtrusive in a corner armchair, knitted quietly, her eyes missing nothing behind her spectacles. The click of her needles was a soft metronome against the crackle of the fire. Hargrove began with Sir Reginald Ashford, who strode in with the air of a man unused to being questioned. This is preposterous, he blustered, adjusting his tie. I was in my study all evening reviewing accounts. That handkerchief you found, mine, yes, but I lost it weeks ago. Someone's playing a trick. Hargrove's pencil scratched. And your argument with Miss Vance? The maid overheard you last night, something about money owed. Sir Reginald's face reddened. A private matter. She claimed I owed her family for some old debt. Utter nonsense. I told her to drop it. Miss Marple's needles paused. Debts, even imagined ones, can stir deep resentments, she murmured as if to herself. Next came Lady Victoria, her auburn hair impeccable despite her pallor. She sat stiffly, her hands folded. I retired early with a headache, she said. Eleanor and I were friends. Those letters from London were about charity work, nothing more. Hargrove raised an eyebrow. Sarah says you quarreled with her about them, secret letters burned in the fireplace. Lady Victoria's lips tightened. Servants exaggerate. It was a misunderstanding, nothing sinister. Miss Marple noted the tremor in her voice, the way her eyes flicked to the door. Charity work can be so taxing, she said mildly, especially when it's private. Reggie sauntered in next, lighting a cigarette with a shaky hand. I was in the conservatory at midnight, smoking, alone. Saw Eleanor in the garden earlier reading her poetry, but that's all. The cigarette butt by the boathouse, your brand, Hargrove said. Reggie shrugged. I smoke everywhere. Doesn't mean I was there. Clarissa, her eyes red from crying, clutched a handkerchief. I was reading in my room. Eleanor was helping with my wedding plans. She was like a sister. I can't imagine why anyone would hurt her. Hargrove pressed. You called her too close to your fiancé once. Jealousy, perhaps? Clarissa flushed. That was a silly moment. I didn't mean it. Captain Harold Beaumont, his limp pronounced in the damp, spoke calmly. I was walking the grounds, clearing my head. My brother's death was an accident. Eleanor's engagement to him was years ago. I held no grudge. Yet you glared at her, Hargrove noted, citing Sarah's account. Harold's jaw tightened. I didn't like her influence over Clarissa, that's all. Jenkins, the butler, stood ramrod straight. I locked up at 11, sir, saw nothing amiss. Miss Vance was in her room when I passed by. Sarah Lass twisted her apron. I heard footsteps in the west wing around midnight, but I was in bed. Couldn't say whose. Miss Marple listened, her mind weaving the testimonies. Each alibi was plausible yet porous, like lace held to the light. The handkerchief, the cigarette butt, the footsteps. They were threads, but were they true clues or clever distractions? The investigation deepened as new evidence surfaced. The gardener, a stooped man named Tompkins, reported finding a torn scrap of gray wool, matching Miss Vance's dress, snagged on a rose bush along the lake path. She must have walked there, he said, or been dragged. The arsenic vial in the medicine cabinet, empty, hinted at poison, though Hargrove's initial autopsy report found none in the body. The male-sized footprints near the boathouse leading to the lake but not back suggested a man's involvement, or a cunning ruse. Miss Marple, strolling the grounds under her umbrella, found a second cigarette butt near the rose bush, also Reggie's brand. Curious, she mused. Either he was careless or someone wishes us to think so. Back in the library, Hargrove pored over the telegram to Sir Reginald. Urgent. E.V. knows all. Meet me. Signed Mr. L. It had arrived from London, postmarked yesterday. Blackmail? Hargrove wondered aloud. Was Miss Vance threatening to expose something? Sir Reginald scoffed. She was a governess, not a mastermind. But Miss Marple tilted her head. Even governesses hear things, Inspector. In a house like this, secrets are as common as cobwebs. The afternoon brought more threads of deception. Sarah confided to Miss Marple that Lady Victoria had been seen in the hall near the west wing at midnight, contradicting her alibi. She was in her nightgown, miss, looking furtive. Reggie produced a receipt from a London club dated the day before, claiming he'd been there until late. But it proved nothing about midnight. Harold's limp made the heavy footprints unlikely unless he'd feigned his injury. Jenkins, when pressed, admitted seeing Miss Vance with a letter from Mr. L days earlier, though he claimed ignorance of its contents. Miss Marple revisited Miss Vance's room, her eyes lingering on the smudged ink blotter and the misplaced rug. She examined the windowsill, noting the scuff mark. Perhaps a shoe, perhaps a tool. The rose petal on the floor, crushed and fragrant, suggested a recent passage to the garden. She went out willingly, Miss Marple murmured, or was lured. In the drawing room, tension simmered. Reggie accused Harold. "You never forgave Eleanor for your brother's death." Harold retorted, "And you were chasing her like a lovesick puppy. She rejected you." Clarissa, overhearing, snapped, "Both of you stop it. She was my friend." Lady Victoria remained silent, her fingers twisting a lace handkerchief. Hargrove uncovered a new clue, a locket in Miss Vance's room hidden in a drawer containing a faded photograph of a young man resembling Jenkins. When questioned, the butler's composure cracked. "She was my niece," he admitted. "Her mother, my sister, fell on hard times. I got Eleanor the post here to protect her." "Protect her from what?" Hargrove pressed. Jenkins hesitated. "From poverty, and from this family's secrets." The revelation cast new light. Was Jenkins shielding Eleanor from blackmail or covering his own role? The arsenic vial, though a red herring without poison in the body, suggested someone wanted to mislead the investigation. The handkerchief with R.A. could implicate Sir Reginald, or Reggie, whose middle name was Arthur. The footprints might belong to an outsider, perhaps this Mr. L. and Miss Marple sat by the fire, her knitting a steady rhythm. "It's like the case of the stolen silver in St. Mary Mead," she said to Hargrove. Everyone had an alibi, but the truth lay in what they didn't say. These clues, the fabric, the cigarette butts, the telegram, are like a village gossip's tales, some true, some false, all pointing somewhere. As evening fell, the rain intensified, trapping the household indoors. Hargrove planned more interviews, but Miss Marple sensed the killer was weaving a tighter web. The torn fabric suggested Miss Vance reached the boathouse alive, but the locked door implied someone else was there. The cigarette butts could be Reggie's carelessness, or a frame. The telegram hinted at a larger conspiracy, perhaps tied to Sir Reginald's faltering finances or Lady Victoria's London secrets. She wandered to the conservatory, where Reggie had claimed to be at midnight. A faint scent of Turkish tobacco lingered, but so did a trace of perfume. Lady Victoria's? "Curious," Miss Marple said, her eyes narrowing. "In a village, you learn to notice what's out of place." The household dined in strained silence, the clink of silverware echoing. Sir Reginald glowered, Lady Victoria avoided eyes, Reggie smoked nervously, Clarissa wept quietly, Harold stared into his wine, and Jenkins served with mechanical precision. Miss Marple, nibbling her soup, watched them all. "It's the little things," she thought, "like a rug askew or a petal crushed, that unravel the grandest deceptions." The investigation pressed on, but the truth remained elusive, hidden in a tangle of lies and half-truths. Raven Court's secrets were like its shadows, deep, shifting, and waiting to be exposed. Chapter 5. Echoes from the Past. The rain that had cloaked Raven Court in gloom now raged into a full-blown storm, its gusts rattling the manor's ancient windows and plunging the estate into a flickering half-light as power lines succumbed to the tempest. The discovery of Miss Eleanor Vance's body in the locked boathouse, strangled with a bruise on her temple, had cast a pall over the household, and the mounting clues only deepened the mystery. Inspector Hargrove, undeterred by the weather, pressed on with his interrogations in the library, his notebook now a sodden mass of ink and suspicion. Miss Jane Marple, ever the quiet observer, sat by the fire, her knitting needles clicking like a metronome, her mind weaving patterns from the tangled threads of evidence. The storm had trapped the household indoors, and the drawing room became a crucible of tension. Candlelight cast long shadows on the velvet drapes, and the air was thick with unspoken accusations. Reggie, nursing a brandy, snapped at Harold. "You never got over Eleanor jilting your brother, did you? That's why you were skulking by the lake." Harold's eyes flashed, his limp forgotten as he leaned forward. "And you, chasing her like a fool. She rejected you and you couldn't stand it." Clarissa, her face pale, clutched her fiancé's arm. "Stop it, both of you. Eleanor was my friend. She didn't deserve this." Lady Victoria, seated by the piano, stared into the flames, her fingers twisting a lace handkerchief. Sir Reginald paced, his usual bluster muted, while Jenkins moved silently, lighting more candles. Sarah, hovering by the door, looked ready to bolt. Miss Marple, sipping tea, noted the cracks in their facades, anger revealing truths alibis had concealed. Hargrove summoned the group for another round of questioning, his voice cutting through the storm's howl. New evidence had emerged, complicating the puzzle. The autopsy, rushed by a doctor braving the weather, confirmed strangulation by hands, not a rope, with the temple bruise from a fall, not the oar. The oar's blood was a red herring, likely animal blood from a poacher's kill, smeared to mislead. More startling was the letter on Miss Vance's desk. A forgery, its ink different from the blotters, written post-mortem to suggest blackmail. "Someone's playing games," Hargrove growled, "and they're clever." Miss Marple tilted her head. "Clever, yes, but not infallible. In St. Mary Mead, a forged note once hid a theft, but the ink gave it away. The truth lies in the details." A fresh clue surfaced. A locket found in the boathouse, overlooked in the initial search, containing a photograph of a young Jenkins and a woman resembling Eleanor. The butler, when confronted, bowed his head. "She was my niece," he admitted, his voice low. "Her mother, my sister, died in poverty after a scandal. I brought Eleanor here to give her a new start, to protect her." "Protect her from what?" Hargrove pressed. Jenkins hesitated, his eyes flickering. "From her past, and from this family's greed." The revelation shifted suspicions. Did Jenkins kill to shield Eleanor from blackmail or to silence her own schemes? Sarah, trembling, confided to Miss Marple in the pantry. "Miss Vance was digging into Sir Reginald's accounts. She said he'd cheated her family years ago, something about a failed investment. She wanted justice." Miss Marple nodded, her needle steady. "Justice can be a dangerous pursuit." "And Lady Victoria's letters?" Sarah whispered. "Eleanor knew her ladyship was planning to leave Sir Reginald for a man in London. She had proof, letters she threatened to show." The storm's peak brought a scream from upstairs. Sarah, sent to fetch linens, had found a bloody glove in Reggie's room tucked inside a boot. Hargrove examined it, noting the blood was fresh, human. Reggie, pale, stammered, "It's not mine. Someone planted it. I swear." Hargrove's eyes narrowed. "Like the handkerchief. You're not making this easy, lad." Miss Marple examined the glove, noting its size, too small for Reggie's hands. "Curious," she said. "It's almost as if the killer wants us to look at him to distract from someone else." Clarissa, overwrought, revealed a new thread. "I saw Father arguing with Eleanor in the study last night. About money she claimed he owed her family. He was furious, said she'd ruin us." Sir Reginald, overhearing, roared, "Lies! It was a heated discussion, nothing more." Lady Victoria, breaking her silence, confessed partially. "Those letters, they were from a friend in London, a man I met at a charity event. Eleanor found out, threatened to tell Reginald unless I helped her leave Raven Court with funds." Hargrove pounced. "Helped her how?" Lady Victoria faltered. I gave her money, that's all. I didn't want her dead." Miss Marple's eyes twinkled. "Money can buy silence, but it also buys enemies." The investigation deepened as Hargrove uncovered financial records in Sir Reginald's study, locked in a hidden safe. The Ashford empire was crumbling. Debts from failed railway ventures, loans called in. Eleanor had discovered embezzlement, siphoned funds meant for her family's restitution. Sir Reginald's motive was clear: silence her before she exposed him. But a twist emerged. Harold admitted he and Lady Victoria were allies, planning to elope after her divorce. Eleanor knew, he said. She had letters proving it. I begged her to stay quiet, but she refused. Reggie, cornered, confessed a gambling debt to London gangsters. Eleanor saw me with them last month, he said. She threatened to tell father unless I paid her. Clarissa, tearful, admitted, Eleanor was helping me secure my inheritance. She said father might disinherit me if his secrets came out. Miss Marple revisited the boathouse in her mind, the clues nagging. The mud on Eleanor's shoes suggested she walked willingly, but the locked door implied coercion. The forged letter pointed to a calculated killer. She wandered to the west wing, re-examining Eleanor's room. The windowsill scuff wasn't a shoe. It was a rope mark, faint but unmistakable. A rope, she murmured, lowered from above or used to drag her. A new discovery. A hidden dumbwaiter behind a panel in Eleanor's study, used to ferry books to the library below. It was narrow but large enough for a body. Like the smuggler's hide in St. Mary Mead, Miss Marple said. A way to move without being seen. Sarah, trailing her, gasped. Could someone have taken her through that? Miss Marple nodded. It's possible, but why the boathouse? Why stage it there? The storm raged on, lightning illuminating the manor's secrets. Hargrove found a second set of footprints near the boathouse. Smaller, female-sized, partially washed away. 2 people, he wondered. Or another trick? Miss Marple sat by her window, the storm's roar a backdrop to her thoughts. The glove too small for Reggie could fit Lady Victoria or Clarissa. The rope mark suggested a body moved, not a living person. The locket tied Jenkins to Eleanor, but his grief seemed genuine. The telegram from Mr. L hinted at a London connection. Perhaps Lady Victoria's lover or a creditor tied to Sir Reginald's debts. She recalled a village scandal where a wife's affair led to murder disguised as an accident. It's the alliances, she mused, the hidden ones that hold the key. Someone in this house is protecting another or betraying them. As the candles burned low, the household retired, their alibis fraying. Hargrove planned to search the dumbwaiter at dawn, but Miss Marple knew the truth was closer. The bloody glove, the forged letter, the rope mark, they were pieces of a puzzle, but the picture was still blurred. It's like knitting a scarf, she thought, one stitch at a time until the pattern emerges. Raven Court's echoes from the past, debts, betrayals, lost loves were surfacing, and the killer's shadow loomed larger with each revelation. Chapter 6. Hidden Alliances. The storm that had battered Raven Court through the night relented at dawn, leaving a bruised sky and a sodden landscape. The manor's ancient stones glistened under a weak October sun, but the air inside remained heavy with suspicion. The murder of Miss Eleanor Vance, strangled in her locked room, her body found in the boathouse, had unraveled the Ashford household's veneer of civility. Inspector Hargrove, his mustache drooping from lack of sleep, pored over his notes in the library, where candle stubs and coffee cups littered the table. Miss Jane Marple, ever serene, sat by the window with her knitting, her eyes sharp as she watched the family's strained interactions. The clues, forged letter, bloody glove, rope mark, and hidden dumbwaiter, pointed to a calculated killer. But the motive remained elusive. The morning brought fresh revelations, each one tightening the web of deception. Hargrove summoned the household to the drawing room where the fire sputtered. casting flickering shadows on the velvet drapes. Sir Reginald Ashford stood by the mantel, his face a mask of indignation. Lady Victoria sat rigidly, her hands clasped. Reggie lit another cigarette, his fingers trembling. Clarissa clutched Harold's arm, her eyes red. Harold, stoic, stared at the floor. Jenkins, the butler, hovered by the door, his expression unreadable. Sarah, the maid, fidgeted with her apron. Miss Marple, knitting quietly, noted the glances exchanged. Reggie to Clarissa, Harold to Lady Victoria, Jenkins to no one at all. Hargrove cleared his throat. "We've new evidence. The dumbwaiter in Miss Vance's room. It's functional, large enough to move a body. Someone used it to get her to the ground floor, then to the boathouse. The rope mark on the windowsill suggests she was lowered, not carried." Sir Reginald scoffed. "Preposterous! That dumbwaiter's been unused for years." Miss Marple tilted her head. "Yet dust can be swept away, Sir Reginald. In St. Mary Mead, a smuggler once used a similar trick to hide stolen goods. The simplest paths are often overlooked." Hargrove continued. "The bloody glove from Reggie's room. Too small for him. It fits a woman's hand or a small man's. And the female-sized footprints near the boathouse, partially washed away, they suggest a second person." Lady Victoria paled. "You're not implying—" "I'm implying nothing," Hargrove cut in. "But alibis are cracking. Sarah saw you in the West Wing at midnight, not in bed." Lady Victoria's voice was sharp. "I was fetching a glass of water. I didn't go near Eleanor's room." Reggie stubbed out his cigarette. "This is madness. I was in the conservatory, like I said. That glove's a plant. I don't wear gloves." Clarissa, trembling, said, "I was in my room, I swear it. Eleanor was my friend." Harold's jaw tightened. "I was on the grounds. Those footprints aren't mine. My limp makes deep prints uneven." Jenkins, when pressed, admitted, "I saw her ladyship near the West Wing, yes, but only briefly. I was locking up." Sarah whispered to Miss Marple later in the kitchen. "Miss Vance had a notebook, kept it hidden. She wrote about the family's secrets, said it was her insurance. I saw her with it last week in the library." Miss Marple's needles clicked. "A notebook? That could be dangerous indeed. Did she show it to anyone?" Sarah shook her head. "She was careful. But I think Mr. Jenkins knew. She trusted him, being her uncle." A search of Eleanor's room yielded no notebook. But Hargrove found a torn page in the fireplace, its edges charred. The fragment bore a single line in her neat script. "Elle knows the truth about the accounts." Hargrove frowned. "This Mr. L again. The telegram sender? A lover? A creditor?" Miss Marple mused. "Or a fiction meant to mislead, like the poison pen letters in my village. Half-truths to stir trouble." A startling twist emerged when Clarissa, breaking down in the conservatory, confessed to Miss Marple. "Eleanor was helping me," she sobbed. "She found papers in Father's study, proof he'd cheated investors, including her family. She was going to confront him, but I begged her not to. It would ruin us." Miss Marple patted her hand. "And did you help her, dear?" Clarissa nodded. "I gave her money to leave, to start over, but she wouldn't. She said she wanted justice." This alliance shifted the puzzle. Eleanor wasn't just a governess. She was a crusader, digging into Sir Reginald's embezzlement. But who else knew? Hargrove uncovered more. A second telegram, intercepted by Jenkins, addressed to Eleanor from Mr. L. "Meet me at the boathouse, midnight. Bring the notebook." It was postmarked London, but the handwriting matched the forged letter. "Someone lured her," Hargrove said. "But how did they get her from her room?" Miss Marple revisited the West Wing, examining the dumbwaiter. Its cables were oiled, recently used, and a faint smear of blood, overlooked before, stained the wood. "She was moved after death," Miss Marple murmured. strangled in her room, then lowered to the ground floor, dragged to the boathouse. Hargrove, following her lead, found a hidden latch in the boathouse wall, a trapdoor to a storage cellar unused for decades. Inside, a coil of rope matched the windowsill mark. They moved her through the manor, then staged the scene, he said. But why the boathouse? Miss Marple's eyes twinkled. To confuse us. A locked room and a locked boathouse. Two impossibilities to muddy the truth. Another revelation shook the household. Harold, under pressure, admitted a deeper connection to Lady Victoria. We planned to leave together, he said, his voice low. Victoria was going to divorce Reginald. Eleanor knew. She had letters proving our affair. She threatened to tell unless we helped her expose him. Lady Victoria, overhearing, gasped. It's true, but I didn't kill her. I gave her money, that's all. Hargrove's eyes narrowed. Money again. Seems everyone was paying Miss Vance to keep quiet. Reggie, cornered, admitted more. I owed money to gangsters in London. Eleanor saw me with them. She said she'd tell Father unless I paid her too. But I didn't have it, I swear I didn't hurt her. Jenkins, his composure fraying, revealed another thread. Eleanor was blackmailing the family, yes, but she was desperate. She wanted enough to start over away from here. I tried to stop her, but she wouldn't listen. Miss Marple noted the alliances forming and breaking. Clarissa and Eleanor, united for justice. Harold and Lady Victoria, bound by love and secrecy. Reggie, entangled with criminals. Jenkins, torn between family and duty. The female-sized footprints suggested a woman's involvement. Lady Victoria, Clarissa, even Sarah, who knew too much. A new clue emerged. A poetry book in Eleanor's room, Keats, with a page dog-eared. A line was underlined. Truth is beauty, beauty truth. Beside it, in Eleanor's hand, was scrawled, L's truth is in the ledger. Miss Marple frowned. The notebook again. It's the key, but it's gone, burned or hidden. Hargrove searched Sir Reginald's study, finding a locked drawer with ledger entries showing funds diverted to a London account under L. This Mr. L was bleeding him dry, Hargrove said. Eleanor found out and it cost her life. Miss Marple wandered to the rose garden where the torn fabric had been found. A faint glint caught her eye. A button, silver, from a woman's coat half buried in the mud. Lady Victoria's? She wondered, recalling her stylish overcoat. Or Clarissa's, perhaps. As night fell, the household gathered for dinner, their faces drawn. Sir Reginald drank heavily. Lady Victoria avoided Harold's gaze. Reggie smoked incessantly. Clarissa stared at her plate, and Jenkins served with a tremor. Miss Marple, nibbling her soup, thought of a village scandal where a wife's betrayal led to murder. It's the hidden alliances, she murmured, that hold the truth. Someone covered for another, or betrayed them. The dumbwaiter, the rope, the button, the forged telegram. They were pieces of a deliberate plan. Miss Marple's knitting slowed, her mind racing. Like a quilt in St. Mary Mead, she thought. Each patch seemed separate, but together they formed the picture. The investigation teetered on the edge of revelation, but the killer's shadow remained just out of reach, hidden in Raven Court's maze of secrets. Chapter 7. The Gathering Storm. The dawn that broke over Raven Court was fragile, the storm's aftermath leaving the estate sodden and silent, as if the very grounds held their breath. The murder of Miss Eleanor Vance, strangled in her locked room, her body moved to the boathouse, had fractured the Ashford household's facade, exposing a tangle of motives and alliances. Inspector Hargrove, his eyes shadowed from sleepless nights, pressed on in the library, his notes now a labyrinth of crossed-out theories and circled names. Miss Jane Marple, serene as ever, sat by the fire with her knitting, her needles clicking like a clock counting down to the truth. The clues, forged letter, bloody glove, rope mark, hidden dumbwaiter, and a missing notebook pointed to a killer within the manor. But the final piece remained elusive. The household gathered in the drawing room, the air thick with tension. Candlelight flickered on the polished furniture, casting distorted shadows that mirrored the distrust among them. Sir Reginald Ashford stood by the window, his face etched with strain, his brandy glass empty. Lady Victoria, her auburn hair slightly askew, sat rigid, her eyes avoiding Harold's. Reggie, chain-smoking, paced near the piano, his usual charm replaced by a nervous edge. Clarissa, clutching a damp handkerchief, leaned against Captain Harold Beaumont, whose stoic demeanor cracked with a clenched jaw. Jenkins the butler moved silently, refilling tea with a tremor in his hands. Sarah, the maid, lingered by the door, her eyes darting as if expecting another scream. Hargrove began with a new intensity, his voice cutting through the morning's chill. "We're close," he said, holding up the charred notebook fragment. Miss Vance knew too much about Sir Reginald's embezzlement, Lady Victoria's affair, Reggie's debts. This Mr. L, real or not, was her leverage. Someone killed to silence her. Sir Reginald bristled. "I told you that debt she claimed was nonsense. I was in my study, not murdering governesses." Hargrove turned to Lady Victoria. "You were seen in the West Wing at midnight, not in bed. And those letters from London, Eleanor had proof of your affair." Lady Victoria's hands twisted her pearls. "I admitted I gave her money to leave. I didn't kill her." Reggie stubbed out his cigarette. "That glove in my room, it's not mine. Someone's framing me, probably because I owed money to those London sharks." Clarissa, tearful, said, "Eleanor was helping me protect my inheritance. I didn't want her dead." Harold's voice was low. "She knew about me and Victoria. I begged her to stay quiet, but I didn't touch her." Jenkins, pressed again, admitted, "I knew Eleanor was blackmailing them. As her uncle, I tried to stop her, but she was stubborn. I was locking up at 11, nowhere near the boathouse." Sarah, trembling, added, "I heard footsteps again last night near the West Wing. Sounded like 2 people. Miss Marple's needles paused. "2 people," she murmured. "Like the 2 sets of footprints at the boathouse, male and female. It's the partnerships that matter here, Inspector." A new clue surfaced. A groundskeeper found a silver button matching Lady Victoria's coat near the rose bush where Eleanor's dress fragment was caught. Hargrove held it up. "Yours, my lady?" Lady Victoria paled. I lost that button days ago. It could have fallen anywhere." Miss Marple tilted her head. "Yet it was buried in mud, as if stepped on recently. Curious, don't you think?" Hargrove's search of the dumbwaiter revealed more. A strand of auburn hair caught in the cables, matching Lady Victoria's shade. "You were in that room," he said, "or near it." Lady Victoria stood, her voice sharp. "I was fetching water. I never touched that dumbwaiter." Miss Marple wandered to the boathouse, braving the muddy path. The trapdoor to the storage cellar held another surprise, a scrap of paper crumpled with a single word in Eleanor's hand. "Ledger." She showed it to Hargrove. "Her notebook wasn't burned entirely," she said. "It's hidden or destroyed, but it pointed to Sir Reginald's accounts." Hargrove confronted Sir Reginald, who admitted, "My finances are strained, yes. Eleanor found discrepancies, funds I redirected to cover debts. She threatened to go to the authorities." "And you silenced her?" Hargrove asked. "Never," Sir Reginald roared. "I offered her money to leave like Victoria did." Miss Marple's eyes twinkled. "So many payments to one woman. It's like the charity bazaar in St. Mary Mead. Everyone contributes, but for their own reasons." A twist emerged when Sarah, in a whispered aside to Miss Marple, revealed, "Miss Vance met someone in the garden that night. I saw her from my window, couldn't see who, but they were arguing near the roses. Miss Marple nodded. The torn fabric, the button. Someone was with her, leading her to the boathouse. Hargrove uncovered another lead, a duplicate key to the boathouse padlock found in Clarissa's jewelry box. Clarissa gasped. "I don't know how that got there. I never went to the boathouse." Reggie, overhearing, snapped, "Someone's setting us all up. First my glove, now her key." Harold's alibi cracked under scrutiny. A gardener saw him near the lake at midnight, not walking the grounds as he claimed. "I was checking the boathouse door," Harold admitted. "Eleanor asked me to meet her there, said it was urgent, but she never showed." Miss Marple frowned. "A note, perhaps? Like the forged telegram from Mr. L?" The storm of accusations peaked as Jenkins revealed a final thread. "Eleanor told me she'd hidden her notebook in the library inside a hollowed-out book. I didn't tell you, Inspector, because I feared it would implicate her." Hargrove searched the library, finding a copy of Keats' poems with a hollowed center. But the notebook was gone. Only a single page remained, listing dates and sums tied to Sir Reginald's accounts with a note, "L is watching." Miss Marple sat by the fire, her knitting steady. "It's like the missing will in St. Mary Mead," she said. "The truth was hidden in plain sight, but someone removed it. This Mr. L, real or invented, drew Eleanor to her death." The clues piled up: the auburn hair, the silver button, the duplicate key, the missing notebook. The dumbwaiter suggested a body moved post-mortem, the rope mark a clever exit from the locked room. The female footprints hinted at a woman's role: Lady Victoria, Clarissa, or even Sarah. Harold's presence at the boathouse raised questions, as did Reggie's glove and Jenkins' secrecy. Miss Marple wandered to the conservatory where Reggie claimed to have been. A faint trace of perfume lingered, Lady Victoria's unmistakable from her Paris scent. "So she was here," Miss Marple mused, "or someone wants us to think so." Dinner was a grim affair, the clink of silverware echoing in the candlelit dining room. Sir Reginald drank heavily, muttering about ruin. Lady Victoria stared at her plate, avoiding Harold's gaze. Reggie smoked, his eyes darting. Clarissa wept silently while Harold's hand clenched his fork. Jenkins served with a tremor, and Sarah avoided the table entirely. Miss Marple, nibbling her pudding, thought of a village scandal where a wife's lover covered her crime. "It's the alliances," she murmured, "and the betrayals within them. Someone lured Eleanor, someone moved her, and someone locked that boathouse." Hargrove planned a final sweep of the grounds at dawn, but Miss Marple sensed the truth was closer. The notebook's absence was key. Someone had taken it to protect themselves. The forged telegram and letter suggested a mastermind, but the button and hair pointed to carelessness. "Like a poorly knitted scarf," she thought. "The stitches are tight, but one loose thread unravels it all." As the household retired, the manor creaked under the weight of its secrets. The investigation teetered on the edge of justice, but the killer's identity remained shadowed, hidden in the gathering storm of Raven Court's lies. Chapter 8. Unmasked Motives. The pale October sun struggled through the clouds over Raven Court, casting a feeble light on the estate's sodden lawns and ivy-clad walls. The murder of Miss Eleanor Vance, strangled in her locked room, her body staged in the boathouse, had turned the manor into a pressure cooker of suspicion. The clues, from a forged letter to a bloody glove, a rope mark, a hidden dumbwaiter, and a missing notebook, pointed to a killer among the Ashford household. But their motives remained tangled in lies. Inspector Hargrove, his face etched with fatigue, continued his dogged pursuit in the library, his notes now a chaotic map of crossed-out alibis and circled clues. Miss Jane Marple, serene in her corner with her knitting, watched the family with eyes that saw beyond their words, her needles clicking like a countdown to truth. The household gathered in the drawing room, the air heavy with unspoken accusations. The fire sputtered, its warmth failing to ease the chill of distrust. Sir Reginald Ashford stood by the mantel, his broad frame tense, a glass of brandy trembling in his hand. Lady Victoria, her auburn hair slightly disheveled, sat with her hands clasped, her emerald eyes avoiding contact. Reggie, chain-smoking, leaned against the piano, his charm replaced by a jittery edge. Clarissa, her engagement ring glinting, clung to Captain Harold Beaumont, whose stoic demeanor masked a clenched jaw. Jenkins, the butler, moved with mechanical precision, refilling tea, while Sarah, the maid, hovered by the door, her face pale. Hargrove began, his voice sharp. "We're closing in." The dumbwaiter moved Miss Vance's body. The rope mark shows how she was lowered, and the notebook, partially burned, proves she knew about Sir Reginald's embezzlement. Someone wanted her silenced, and they're in this room. Sir Reginald slammed his glass down. "I've told you that debt she claimed was fiction. I offered her money to leave, not to kill her." Hargrove turned to Lady Victoria. "Your hair in the dumbwaiter, your button by the rosebush. You were in the West Wing at midnight, not fetching water." Lady Victoria's voice was icy. "I lost that button days ago. The hair. Perhaps I brushed against the dumbwaiter earlier. I didn't kill Eleanor." Reggie flicked ash into a tray. "That glove in my room, too small for me. Someone's framing me, probably those gangsters I owe. Eleanor knew about them, threatened to tell father. Clarissa, tearful, said, 'She was protecting my inheritance. I gave her money to leave, but she wanted justice for her family. I didn't hurt her.' Harold's tone was steady. 'Eleanor knew about me and Victoria. I asked her to stay quiet, but I was at the boathouse when she didn't show. Someone lured me there.' Jenkins, his face a mask, said, 'As her uncle, I tried to stop her blackmail. I was locking up at 11, nowhere near her room.' Sarah, trembling, added, 'I saw Miss Vance in the garden arguing with someone. I couldn't see who, but it was heated.' Miss Marple's needles paused. 'Arguments leave traces, Sarah. Like the torn fabric, the button, it's the unseen partnerships that matter.' Hargrove revealed a new clue, a ledger entry in Sir Reginald's study, hidden in a locked drawer, showing funds siphoned to a London account under L. 'This Mr. L was draining you,' Hargrove said to Sir Reginald. 'Eleanor found out, didn't she?' Sir Reginald's face darkened. 'She confronted me, yes. Said I'd cheated her family years ago. I offered to pay her off, but she refused.' Miss Marple tilted her head. 'Refusal can be dangerous, like the vicar's wife in St. Mary Mead who refused a bribe and paid dearly.' A deeper motive emerged for Lady Victoria. Hargrove found a letter in her room half burned from a man named Lawrence, her lover Mr. L. It read, 'Leave him, Victoria. Eleanor's evidence can free you.' Lady Victoria gasped. 'Lawrence is a friend, nothing more. Eleanor was going to ruin everything.' Hargrove pressed. 'So you silenced her?' 'Never,' she cried. 'I gave her money to leave, that's all.' Reggie's motive deepened too. A telegram from London intercepted by Jenkins revealed his gambling debts had escalated. Gangsters threatened violence unless he paid. 'Eleanor saw me with them,' he admitted. 'She said she'd tell father, ruin my inheritance. But I didn't kill her.' Clarissa's jealousy surfaced. Sarah confided to Miss Marple. Miss Clarissa was cross with Eleanor, thought she was too close to Captain Beaumont. I heard her say, 'Stay away from Harold or else.' Clarissa, overhearing, sobbed. 'I was jealous, yes, but I loved her like a sister. I didn't mean it.' Harold's past with Eleanor's fiancé, his brother, revealed a grudge. 'She broke his heart,' he admitted. 'He died in that accident, but I blamed her for pushing him to despair. Still, I didn't kill her.' Jenkins' motive grew complex. 'Eleanor was conning the family,' he said. She blackmailed them for her own gain, not just justice. I begged her to stop, but she wouldn't. Miss Marple wandered to the library where the hollowed-out Keats book had held Eleanor's notebook. A faint pencil mark inside the cover read, "Lee's truth is in the safe." She showed it to Hargrove. The ledger, perhaps? Or something more personal? Hargrove searched Sir Reginald's safe again, finding a second ledger, older, detailing payments to Eleanor's family stopped abruptly years ago. "You cut them off," Hargrove said. "She came here to expose you." Sir Reginald slumped. "It was business. Her father was a poor investment. I didn't kill her for it." A new clue. A second set of footprints, female-sized, near the boathouse, clearer now in the drying mud. They matched Lady Victoria's shoes, not Clarissa's. "You were there," Hargrove accused. Lady Victoria stood. "I walked the grounds earlier that day. I didn't go near the boathouse at night." Miss Marple revisited the rose garden, finding a crushed cigarette, not Reggie's Turkish blend, but a cheaper brand like those smoked by the groundskeeper. "Someone else was here," she murmured, "watching or helping." The household's motives were unmasked. Sir Reginald's embezzlement, Lady Victoria's affair with Lawrence, Reggie's debts, Clarissa's jealousy, Harold's grudge, Jenkins' family loyalty. Each had reason to silence Eleanor, but the clues, button, hair, footprints, forged letter, suggested a conspiracy. Miss Marple sat by the fire, her knitting steady. "It's like the choir scandal in St. Mary Mead," she said. "Everyone had a motive, but only one acted, because of an unexpected alliance." Hargrove found a final clue, a scrap of fabric in the dumbwaiter, not gray wool but silk, matching Lady Victoria's nightgown. "You were in that room," he said, "not just passing by." Lady Victoria's voice broke. "I checked on Eleanor, yes, but she was alive. I left her writing that letter." Miss Marple's eyes twinkled. "Or someone wanted us to think so. The forged letter, written after death, suggests a plan to mislead." As evening fell, the household dined in silence, the clink of cutlery like a tolling bell. Sir Reginald stared into his wine. Lady Victoria avoided Harold's gaze. Reggie smoked nervously. Clarissa wept. And Jenkins served with a tremor. Miss Marple, nibbling her soup, thought of a village murder where a lover's betrayal hid the truth. "It's the unexpected partner," she murmured, "who pulls the strings." The clues, silk fabric, female footprints, the groundskeeper's cigarette, pointed to a second person, someone covering tracks or aiding the killer. The notebook's absence was key. Its secrets threatened more than one life. Miss Marple's knitting slowed, her mind racing. Like a tapestry in St. Mary Mead, she thought. The pattern is there, but one thread is missing. The investigation neared its climax, the motives laid bare, but the killer's face remained shadowed in Raven Court's web of deceit. Chapter 9. The Final Twist. The morning sun pierced the lingering clouds over Raven Court, casting long shadows across the estate's manicured lawns and ivy-clad walls. The murder of Miss Eleanor Vance, strangled in her locked room, her body staged in the boathouse, had turned the Ashford household into a cauldron of suspicion, with motives laid bare but the killer still cloaked. Inspector Hargrove, his face haggard from relentless questioning, pored over his notes in the library, the weight of the case etched in his furrowed brow. Miss Jane Marple, serene as ever, sat by the window with her knitting, her needles clicking softly, her eyes sharp as she pieced together the puzzle of clues. A forged letter, a bloody glove, a rope mark, a hidden dumbwaiter, a missing notebook, and a trail of secrets pointing to Mr. L. The household gathered in the drawing room, the air thick with dread. The fire crackled weakly, unable to dispel the chill of mistrust. Sir Reginald Ashford stood by the mantel, his broad frame slumped, his brandy glass empty. Lady Victoria, her auburn hair pinned tightly, sat with her hands clasped, her gaze distant. Reggie, chain-smoking, leaned against the piano, his eyes darting nervously. Clarissa, her engagement ring dull in the light, clung to Captain Harold Beaumont, whose stoic facade masked a clenched fist. Jenkins, the butler, moved with a tremor, pouring tea, while Sarah, the maid, hovered by the door, her face pale. Miss Marple, knitting steadily, noted the unspoken alliances, glances between Harold and Lady Victoria, Reggie's avoidance of Clarissa's eyes, Jenkins' guarded silence. Hargrove's voice was grim. "We're at the end game." The dumbwaiter moved Miss Vance's body. The rope mark shows how, and the notebook, partially burned, proves she knew about Sir Reginald's embezzlement and Lady Victoria's affair. Someone lured her to her death, and the clues point to this room. Sir Reginald's voice was hoarse. "I've said it. She claimed a debt, but it was nonsense. I offered her money to leave, not to die." Lady Victoria's eyes flashed. "That button, that hair, they're not proof. I was in the West Wing for water, not murder." Reggie stubbed out his cigarette. "The glove's a frame. Those gangsters I owe could have planted it. Eleanor knew about them, but I didn't kill her." Clarissa, tearful, said, "She was protecting my inheritance. I gave her money, but I didn't hurt her." Harold's tone was low. "She knew about me and Victoria. I was at the boathouse, lured by a note, but she was already dead." Jenkins, his face ashen, said, "As her uncle, I failed her. She blackmailed them, but I didn't know until too late." Sarah whispered to Miss Marple, "I found something, a key, hidden in Miss Clarissa's jewelry box. It's the boathouse duplicate." Miss Marple's needles paused. "A duplicate key," she murmured. "Like the spare key to the vicarage in St. Mary Mead used to hide a theft. It changes everything." Hargrove confronted Clarissa with the key, his voice sharp. "This was in your possession. Explain." Clarissa's eyes widened. "I don't know how it got there. I never went to the boathouse, I swear," Reggie snapped. "Another plant, like my glove." Miss Marple tilted her head. "Yet the key fits, and someone used it to lock the boathouse after moving her." A breakthrough came when Hargrove re-examined the dumbwaiter. A faint scratch inside matched a ring Lady Victoria wore. A sapphire, its edge sharp. "You were in there," Hargrove said, "not just passing by." Lady Victoria stood, her voice trembling. "I checked on Eleanor, yes, but she was writing, alive. I left her." Miss Marple's eyes twinkled. "Or someone wants us to think so. The forged letter written post-mortem suggests a deeper plan." A stunning twist emerged. The autopsy, refined by the doctor, revealed Eleanor wasn't killed in the boathouse. The strangulation occurred in her room, the bruise from a fall as she was moved. The boathouse was a stage, the body transported via the dumbwaiter and rope, then dragged across the garden path. "She was dead before midnight," Hargrove said. "The note luring Harold was a lie." Miss Marple nodded. "Like the smuggler's trick in Cornwall, where a body was moved to confuse the time of death. The killer needed us to look elsewhere." Hargrove found another clue. A second scrap of Eleanor's notebook hidden in the library's Keats book overlooked before. It read, "L is not a man. L is leverage." Miss Marple frowned. Not a person, but a concept. Her leverage was the ledger, the proof of Sir Reginald's crimes. The silver button, the auburn hair, the silk fabric, all pointed to Lady Victoria, but the female footprints could also be Clarissa's. Hargrove pressed Sarah, who admitted, "I saw Miss Clarissa in the garden that night near the roses after the argument. She was crying, holding something, paper maybe." Clarissa broke down. "I was jealous of Eleanor. She was so close to Harold, to everyone. I confronted her, but I didn't kill her. I found a note in her room saying to meet at the boathouse. I took it, hid it." Hargrove pounced. Hid it where? Clarissa sobbed. I burned it. I thought it would protect Harold. Miss Marple's knitting slowed. Burning evidence rarely protects, dear. It obscures the truth. A final clue surfaced. A groundskeeper's cigarette found near the rosebush wasn't his brand. It matched Jenkins' private stash kept in his quarters. Hargrove confronted him. You were there, Jenkins, not just locking up. Jenkins' composure cracked. I followed Eleanor to the garden. She was meeting someone. I wanted to protect her, but I was too late. I saw someone drag her to the boathouse. Who? Hargrove demanded. Jenkins shook his head. It was dark. I couldn't see. Miss Marple wandered to the rose garden, retracing the path. The crushed petal, the torn fabric, the button, they told a story of a struggle, a body moved in haste. She returned to Eleanor's room, examining the dumbwaiter. A faint smear of polish, nail polish, bright red, caught her eye. Clarissa wears red polish, she murmured, but Lady Victoria does not. Hargrove searched Clarissa's room, finding a torn silk scarf, its pattern matching the dumbwaiter fabric. You were involved, he said. You moved her. Clarissa collapsed, sobbing. I didn't kill her. I found her dead in her room. I panicked. I used the dumbwaiter to hide her, to protect someone. Miss Marple's eyes narrowed. Protect whom, dear? The truth is near. The household dined in silence, the clink of silverware like a dirge. Sir Reginald stared into his wine. Lady Victoria avoided Harold's gaze. Reggie smoked nervously. Clarissa wept, and Jenkins served with a yawn tremor. Miss Marple, nibbling her pudding, thought of a village murder where a sister protected a brother's crime. It's the unexpected ally, she murmured, who shifts the pattern. The clues, duplicate key, nail polish, silk scarf, forged note, pointed to a conspiracy. Eleanor was killed in her room, moved to confuse the timeline and staged to mislead. The notebook's absence protected the killer, but the ledger's truth was undeniable. Miss Marple's knitting slowed, her mind racing. Like a quilt in St. Mary Mead, she thought, the final stitch reveals the design. The investigation teetered on the brink of unveiling, the killer's shadow sharpening in Raven Court's maze of secrets. Chapter 10. The Unveiling. The morning sun bathed Raven Court in a golden glow, its rays piercing the mist that had clung to the Berkshire estate for days. The manor's ivy-clad walls stood silent as if awaiting the resolution of the dark drama within. The murder of Miss Eleanor Vance, strangled in her locked room, her body staged in the boathouse, had unraveled the Ashford household's secrets, exposing a tangle of motives: embezzlement, betrayal, jealousy, and revenge. Inspector Hargrove, his face lined with exhaustion but his eyes alight with determination, had gathered every clue: forged letter, bloody glove, rope mark, hidden dumbwaiter, missing notebook, and a trail of red herrings. Yet it was Miss Jane Marple, sitting quietly with her knitting, who held the threads to weave the truth. Today in the drawing room she would unravel the mystery. The household assembled, their faces a gallery of dread and anticipation. Sir Reginald Ashford stood by the mantel, his broad frame slumped, his brandy glass forgotten. Lady Victoria, her auburn hair tightly pinned, sat with her hands clenched, her emerald eyes flickering with fear. Reggie, his cigarette unlit for once, leaned against the piano, his jaw tight. Clarissa, her engagement ring dull, clung to Captain Harold Beaumont, whose stoic demeanor hid a clenched fist. Jenkins, the butler, stood by the door, his face ashen, while Sarah, the maid, hovered behind, her eyes wide. Miss Marple, her knitting bag at her side, took a seat near the fire, her spectacles glinting as she surveyed the room. Inspector Hargrove began, his voice steady. We've pieced together much. Miss Vance was strangled in her room, moved via the dumbwaiter, lowered by rope and staged in the boathouse to confuse us. The forged letter, the glove, the duplicate key, all meant to mislead. But we're here for the truth. Miss Marple set her knitting aside, her voice soft but commanding. Indeed, Inspector, this case reminds me of a scandal in St. Mary Mead where a simple lie hid a complex crime. Let us begin with the facts. She stood, her small figure suddenly authoritative. Miss Vance was no mere governess. She came to Raven Court seeking justice for her family, cheated by Sir Reginald's financial schemes years ago. Her notebook, hidden in a Keats volume, detailed his embezzlement, funds siphoned to a London account under L. Not a man, but leverage, as she wrote. She blackmailed the family, not for greed, but to force restitution. Sir Reginald blustered. I offered her money to leave. Miss Marple nodded. You did, but she refused. She wanted the truth exposed, which threatened your empire. She turned to Lady Victoria. You, my dear, had your own secrets. Your affair with Lawrence, a London banker, was documented in letters Eleanor found. She threatened to tell Sir Reginald, jeoparding your fear of ruin. Lady Victoria's voice trembled. I gave her money to go. I didn't kill her. Miss Marple's eyes twinkled. Yet your hair was in the dumbwaiter. Your button by the rosebush, your silk fabric caught in the mechanism. You were in her room that night. Reggie interrupted. What about the glove in my room? Someone framed me. Miss Marple tilted her head. A clever distraction, but the glove was too small for you. It fit a woman, or someone who wanted us to look at you. Clarissa, sobbing, said, The boathouse key in my jewelry box, I didn't put it there. I only hid a note to protect Harold. Miss Marple nodded. Your jealousy of Eleanor's closeness to Harold was real, but you didn't kill her. You moved her body, didn't you? To protect someone. Harold's voice was low. She knew about me and Victoria. I was lured to the boathouse, but she was already dead. Miss Marple turned to Jenkins. As her uncle, you knew her plans. You followed her to the garden, saw her argue, but claimed you couldn't see who. Yet your cigarette was found by the rose bush. Jenkins' face crumpled. I wanted to save her, but I was too late. Miss Marple's voice softened. Let me tell you what happened. Eleanor was lured to her room by a note, forged to look like it came from Mr. L. Her leverage, not a person. She was writing when the killer entered via the dumbwaiter, a path known only to someone intimate with the manor's secrets. She was strangled there, her body falling and bruising her temple. The killer moved her through the dumbwaiter, lowered her by rope, hence the windowsill mark, and dragged her to the boathouse, locking it with a duplicate key. Hargrove leaned forward. But who? Miss Marple's gaze settled on Lady Victoria. You, my dear, were the mastermind with Harold as your accomplice. Your affair with Lawrence was no mere flirtation. It was a plan to escape Sir Reginald's crumbling empire. Eleanor's evidence, her notebook, threatened to expose not only your affair but your role in laundering Sir Reginald's embezzled funds through Lawrence's bank. You couldn't let her speak. Lady Victoria gasped. That's absurd. I loved... Miss Marple raised a hand. You entered her room via the dumbwaiter, your sapphire ring, scratching the wood, your silk nightgown catching. You strangled her, your strength surprising for one so elegant. You lowered her body, leaving your hair and button as you dragged her across the garden. The boathouse was your stage, locked to create an impossible crime. Harold stood, his face pale. You can't prove this. Miss Marple's eyes sharpened. You locked the boathouse, Harold, after Victoria moved her. Your presence there, confirmed by the gardener, was no coincidence. You forged the letter and telegram to lure suspicion to Mr. L., a fiction to hide your lover's guilt. Hargrove frowned. The evidence, button, hair, fabric, it's circumstantial. Miss Marple smiled faintly. Until you consider the ink smudge on Eleanor's blotter. It matched the sapphire in your ring, Lady Victoria. A trace of blue wax you used to seal your letters to Lawrence. And Clarissa's confession. She moved the body to protect you, Harold, believing you innocent. Clarissa sobbed. I found her dead. I thought Harold was in danger. Miss Marple nodded. You hid the note, burned it, but the key gave you away. You were loyal but misguided. Jenkins bowed his head. I suspected Victoria, but I couldn't betray Eleanor's memory. Reggie, stunned, said, So father's innocent? Of murder, yes, Miss Marple said, but not of greed. His embezzlement drove Eleanor here, and your debts, Reggie, gave her leverage. Everyone played a part, but only one struck the blow. Hargrove signaled his constables. Lady Victoria, Captain Beaumont, you're under arrest. Lady Victoria collapsed, sobbing as Harold stood silently, his head bowed. The constables led them away, the clink of handcuffs echoing. Sir Reginald slumped into a chair, his empire and marriage in ruins. Clarissa wept. Reggie lit a cigarette, and Jenkins vanished to the servants' quarters. Sarah, trembling, whispered, It's over, miss. Miss Marple resumed her knitting. Human nature is predictable, yet always surprising. Like a village quarrel in St. Mary Mead, it's the quiet ones who hide the deepest secrets. As the sun set, Raven Court stood silent, its shadows lighter but not gone. Justice had been served, but the scars of truth lingered. Miss Marple packed her bag, ready for the train back to St. Mary Mead, where simpler mysteries awaited.